The metal floor of the USS Horizon hummed beneath Lieutenant Allison Gray's boots as she stood at the observation deck. Her dark hair was pulled back in a tight bun, and her blue uniform was crisp and perfect. Through the massive window before her, she watched the stars, but today something else caught her eye. A strange ship approached Earth. It was huge, at least 3 times the size of the Horizon, with a design unlike anything humans had built. Its surface gleamed like polished bone under the sun. "Lieutenant, what do you make of that?" "Captain Frank," Porter asked as he joined her. He was a tall man with short gray hair and deep lines around his eyes from years of squinting at distant horizons. "I don't know, sir," Allison said, "but I think our first contact day has finally arrived. For decades, humanity had sent signals into space hoping for a response. Now, without warning, the aliens had come. All stations, prepare for first contact protocol." Porter spoke into his comm device. His voice was calm, but Allison noticed how his hand rested near his sidearm. "Lieutenant Gray, you're with me. Command center in 5 minutes." The command center buzzed with activity. Officers moved quickly between stations, checking readings and preparing defense systems. On the main screen, the alien ship grew larger as it settled into orbit alongside the International Space Station. "They're sending a transmission," said Communications Officer Ben Kelly. Sweat beaded on his forehead as his fingers moved across his control panel. I think they're speaking English." "Put it through," Porter ordered. The screen flickered and Allison's breath caught in her throat. The alien that appeared had a face that reminded her of a lizard, but with features that seemed almost cat-like. Its scales were a deep purple with gold markings, and its eyes were large, yellow, and unblinking. "People of Earth," the alien spoke, its mouth moving in strange ways around the familiar words. "I am Supreme Hunter Zarkesh of the Vexari Dominion. We have come to establish formal contact with your world." Porter stepped forward. "This is Captain Frank Porter of the United States Navy vessel Horizon. On behalf of Earth, we welcome you." The alien made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Your welcome is noted, though perhaps premature. We request a meeting with your leaders. We will send a shuttle to your coordinates in 6 of your hours." Before Porter could respond, the transmission ended. "Well," Porter said, turning to his crew, "looks like we need to call the president." 6 hours later, Allison stood in a hastily prepared conference room at the naval base. Representatives from major world powers sat around a long table, their faces tense. Armed guards lined the walls. The door opened, and 3 Vexari entered. They moved with a fluid grace that reminded Allison of large predators. Zarkesh led them, standing nearly 7 feet tall. Up close, Allison could see that what she had thought were decorations were actually weapons integrated into their armor. "Thank you for agreeing to meet us," the United States President said, rising to greet them. Zarkesh did not sit. Instead, he paced slowly around the table, studying each human with those unblinking eyes. "Your gratitude is misplaced," he finally said. "We are not here to welcome you to the galactic community. We are here to contain a threat." The room went silent. "Threat?" the Chinese representative asked. "We have done nothing to your people." "Not yet," Zarkesh said. "But your potential concerns us. Your planet has been classified as a Class 12 death world." He touched a device on his wrist, and a hologram appeared in the center of the table. It showed Earth, spinning slowly, surrounded by data in an alien language. "This is the highest danger rating in the Galactic Index," Zarkesh continued. "Only 17 worlds among the thousands we have cataloged reach this classification. Of those, only Earth has produced a technologically advanced species." Allison leaned forward. "What makes Earth so dangerous?" Zarkesh turned those yellow eyes on her. "Everything. Your gravity is crushing. Your atmosphere is toxic with oxygen. Your temperature variations would kill most species. Your world is constantly trying to destroy you, yet you thrive." He touched the device again, and the hologram changed to show a human silhouette. "And then there is your species." Zarkesh sounded almost disgusted. You can survive radiation that would kill others. You can endure temperature extremes with minimal protection. Your bodies repair themselves from injuries that would be fatal to most species. The Russian representative laughed. You make us sound impressive. We consider ourselves rather fragile. That is because you have not seen true fragility. One of the other Vexari hissed. You break bones and continue fighting. You lose blood and stay conscious. You eat plants and animals that contain compounds toxic to most life forms. And most concerning, Zarkesh added, you are relentless. Most predator species hunt until they are tired or satisfied. You hunted prey until they collapsed from exhaustion, even if it took days. No other species does this. Porter stood up, slowly. Are you saying you're afraid of us? Caution is not fear, Captain, Zarkesh said, but Allison noticed a subtle change in his posture. We simply recognize the danger you present. The Galactic Council has decided on quarantine rather than elimination for now. Elimination? The President's voice was sharp. You're threatening us? Merely stating facts, Zarkesh replied. Here are the terms. Earth will remain isolated. You may continue development within your solar system but may not establish colonies beyond it. Any attempt to do so will be considered an act of aggression and will result in sterilization measures. The meeting dissolved into angry shouts and demands for clarification. Through it all, Allison watched the aliens. They kept their distance from the humans, she realized. They positioned themselves near exits. Their hands never strayed far from their weapons. They were afraid. Not just cautious. Genuinely afraid. Hours later, after the aliens had returned to their ship with the quarantine agreement reluctantly signed, Allison found Porter staring out a window at the night sky. They see us as monsters, he said quietly. Yes, sir, Allison agreed. But they're wrong about one thing. Porter looked at her. What's that, Lieutenant? They think keeping us contained will make them safe, she said. But if there's one thing humans have always done, it's break through barriers. Porter nodded slowly. They fear us now, without even knowing what we're really capable of. He turned back to the window. Get some rest, Lieutenant Gray. Tomorrow we start planning. Planning for what, sir? His reflection in the glass showed a grim smile. For the day when the galaxy learns that the most dangerous thing about humans isn't our bodies or our world. It's what we do when someone tells us we can't do something. As Allison walked away, she felt a strange mix of fear and pride. Humans were considered dangerous by beings who had crossed the stars. It was terrifying to think of what might come next, but also oddly comforting to know that Earth's children might not be as helpless in the cosmos as they had feared. The quarantine was meant to be a cage, but humans had never been good at staying in cages. Dr. Alan West stared out the small window of his living quarters on the Vexari research station, Nexus 9. Earth was a blue dot in the distance, so small he could cover it with his thumb. 6 months had passed since first contact, and he was the only human allowed to leave Earth's solar system. Alan ran his hand through his brown hair and sighed. The Vexari had invited him to study with them as part of a scientific exchange. But he knew the truth. They wanted to study him as much as they wanted his help studying other species. His door chimed, and he turned to see Dr. Kelnar enter. The female Vexari scientist was shorter than most of her kind, with teal scales that shimmered under the lights. As always, she kept at least 10 feet between herself and Alan. Good morning, Dr. West, she said. We have new specimens in Lab 4. Your presence is requested. Alan nodded and followed her into the hallway. He noticed how other aliens moved aside as he walked by. Some pressed against the walls, their eyes wide with what he now recognized as fear. They still act like I'm going to attack them, Alan said quietly. Kelnar glanced back at him. You cannot blame them. Most have never seen a human before. Your reputation precedes you. In Lab 4, 3 other alien scientists worked at stations around a central table. On the table lay a creature that looked like a cross between a spider and a wolf with 8 legs ending in paws and multiple eyes across its furry head. This is a predator from Krell 6, Kelnar explained. It is considered the apex hunter of its world. Alan studied the sedated creature. "It's beautiful," he said. "What do you need from me?" "We want to compare its hunting adaptations to yours," said another scientist, a bulbous being named Grath, whose species communicated through color changes and scent as much as words. Alan frowned. "I'm not a hunter." The aliens exchanged looks that Alan couldn't read. "All humans are hunters," Kelnar said. "It is in your biology." For the next several hours, Alan worked with the team, comparing the Krellian predator's physical abilities to human baselines. The creature could jump 20 feet, had claws that could tear through metal, and could see in almost complete darkness. By all measures, it should have made humans look weak in comparison. But then came the endurance tests. "This cannot be right," Grath said, checking the readings again. "According to these simulations, a human could outlast the Krellian in a prolonged hunt. Humans aren't very fast," Alan explained. "But we can keep going for a very long time. We evolved as persistence hunters." The aliens fell silent, their expressions showing what Alan had come to recognize as their version of horror. "You pursued prey until it collapsed from exhaustion?" Kelnar asked. "Some human cultures still hunt that way," Alan said. "Run after an animal for hours or even days until it can't run anymore." The room temperature seemed to drop. Alan had learned that the Vexari and many other species were ambush predators. The idea of relentlessly pursuing prey was disturbing to them on a deep level. After the tests were complete, Alan returned to his quarters to send his weekly message to Earth. Lieutenant Gray, now promoted to lieutenant commander, was his main contact. He carefully composed his message, knowing the Vexari would read it. "Scientific exchange progressing well," he wrote. "Learning much about galactic biology, missing Earth's coffee and sunshine." That was the official message. But hidden within, it was a code they had developed. The first letter of every third word spelled out, "Vexari divided on humans, some want peace, others war." He sent the message and then pulled out his personal tablet. The Vexari had given it to him for entertainment, but he had discovered he could access parts of the station's information network through it. What he found troubled him deeply. The Vexari had been watching Earth for centuries. They had records of human wars, human exploration, and human resilience. And they were terrified. Some of their oldest legends spoke of a time when the Vexari were not the dominant predators of their section of the galaxy. There were hints that they had encountered Earth before, perhaps millions of years ago, and the meeting had not gone well for them. A loud alarm suddenly blared through the station. Alan jumped up as red lights flashed in his room. Something was wrong. He ran to his door, but it was locked. Through the small window in the door, he saw aliens rushing past. He banged on the door until a security officer stopped. "What's happening?" Alan shouted. "Lab accident," the officer said. "Toxic gas release in Lab 4. Stay in your quarters." Alan felt cold fear grip him. Lab 4 was where they had been working all day. Kelnar and the others were still there. Without thinking, he overrode the door lock using a trick he had learned while exploring the station's systems. The door slid open and he ran toward Lab 4. The hallway near the lab was filled with a greenish mist. 2 aliens lay on the floor, not moving. Alan pulled his shirt over his mouth and nose and pushed forward. Inside the lab, he found Kelnar, collapsed near a broken container. He lifted her, she was surprisingly light, and carried her out of the lab. After setting her down in a clear area, he went back for the others. By the time security arrived with breathing equipment, Alan had rescued all 3 scientists. He sat against a wall, coughing and dizzy from the gas, but alive. The security team stared at him in shock. "How are you conscious?" one asked. "That gas should have killed you instantly." Alan shrugged. "Guess humans are resistant." Later, in the medical bay, Alan watched as Kelnar regained consciousness. Her scales had dulled to a pale blue, but the doctors said she would recover. "You saved my life," she said weakly. "Why?" "Because it was the right thing to do," Alan replied simply. Kelnar studied him for a long moment. "The Leadership Council is meeting tomorrow to discuss the human question," she said quietly. "Some want to integrate your species slowly into the galactic community. Others, she looked away, want to eliminate the threat we pose, Alan finished for her. She nodded. I will speak for integration now. But you must understand, Dr. West. Many of my people will never see humans as anything but dangerous predators. That night, as Alan lay in his bed, he composed one final message to Lieutenant Commander Gray. It was short and without their usual code. They're planning something. Earth needs to prepare. As he sent it, alarms sounded again. His door burst open and security officers rushed in. They held weapons trained on him, their hands shaking. Dr. Alan West, the lead officer said, you are being temporarily sedated. For further biological examination, please do not resist. Alan raised his hand slowly. I'm not a threat to you, he said. The officer made a sound that might have been a laugh. The accident proved otherwise. You survived what should have been lethal. The traditionalists are calling you the unkillable one. Your kind terrifies us, human. As the sedative took effect and darkness closed in, Alan's last thought was of Earth, small and blue and fragile looking from space, but home to a species that made the galaxy's apex predators tremble. 1 year had passed since the aliens first came to Earth. Lieutenant Commander Allison Gray stood in the main briefing room of the newly built Galactic Relations Center in Washington, D.C. The room was filled with military officers and government officials, all focused on the large screen showing a message from the Vixari. They want what? Asked Admiral Frank Porter, his eyebrows raised in surprise. They want 5 human representatives to attend something called the Galactic Summit on Classified Species, Allison explained. The message is from Supreme Hunter Zarkesh himself. The room buzzed with whispers. Earth had been under quarantine for a year, with Vixari ships patrolling the edges of the solar system. This was the first invitation to leave the quarantine zone. It could be a trap, said General Rick Davis, his face grim. Or it could be a chance to change their minds about us, Allison countered. Dr. West's last message suggested divisions among the Vixari. This might be from the group that wants peace. After hours of debate, the decision was made. Admiral Porter would lead a team of 5 humans to the summit. He selected Allison, Dr. Alan West, who had been returned to Earth 3 months earlier in what the Vixari called a gesture of goodwill, Sergeant Maya Rodriguez, a Marine combat specialist, and Professor William Clark, an expert in languages and communication. 2 weeks later, they boarded a Vixari shuttle. It was their first time seeing the aliens' technology up close, and Allison marveled at the smooth, organic design of the ship's interior. It feels like we're inside a living thing, Maya whispered, her hand never far from where her weapon would normally be. As an expert in hand-to-hand combat, she felt naked without it. The journey took 3 days. They spent most of it preparing, studying the limited information they had about the other species that would be at the summit. Finally, they arrived at a massive space station orbiting a red-orange planet. Welcome to Station Apex, said a Vixari guide who met them at the docking bay. The Vixari homeworld Vextar lies below. The summit begins tomorrow. You have been assigned quarters in the blue sector. Please follow me. Their rooms were comfortable but clearly designed for monitoring. Allison found 3 different types of cameras hidden in the walls of her room. That evening, they were invited to a pre-summit gathering in a large hall. As they entered, Allison felt dozens of alien eyes turn to look at them. Species of all shapes and sizes filled the room, but they all moved away as the humans approached. They're scared of us, William noted quietly. All of them. A tall, mantis-like being approached them, its movements careful and measured. You are the Earth delegation, it said in a clicking voice. I am Tziktal of the Rax Hive. We too come from what they call a death world, though only Class 9. Pleased to meet you, Admiral Porter said, extending his hand before remembering that not all species shook hands. He lowered it awkwardly. Ziktal's large compound eyes studied them. A warning, Earth beings. This is not truly a summit. It is a display. The Vixari want to show the galaxy why some species are classified as dangerous. Be prepared for tests. Before they could ask more questions, Supreme Hunter Zarkesh entered the hall. All conversation stopped. He looked exactly as Allison remembered, his purple scales gleaming in the light. But now he wore an elaborate headdress that seemed to signify his rank. "Welcome, representatives of the galaxy's most formidable worlds," Zarkesh announced. "Tomorrow you will demonstrate your species' capabilities. Rest well." The next morning, they were led to a massive arena. The human team wore matching blue uniforms provided by their hosts. In the center of the arena stood Zarkesh with several other high-ranking Vexari. "The first challenge tests physical endurance," Zarkesh announced. "Each species will select one representative." The humans chose Sergeant Rodriguez, the fittest among them. She joined representatives from 7 other species, in what turned out to be a grueling test of strength and stamina. They had to run on tracks with gradually increasing gravity, lift heavier and heavier weights, and finally endure extreme temperatures. 3 of the alien competitors collapsed within the first hour. 2 more gave up during the gravity test. In the end, only Maya, Ziktal, and a massive bear-like creature remained. The temperature dropped to freezing, then rose to desert heat, then dropped again. The bear creature growled and stepped off the track. Ziktal lasted another 30 minutes before his exoskeleton began to crack from the strain. Maya, sweating but steady, completed the course alone. The watching aliens murmured in shock. Even the Vexari judges seemed disturbed. "Humans evolved on a planet with extreme temperature variations," Alan explained to a group of curious aliens afterward. "We can adapt to almost any climate given time." The second challenge tested problem-solving. The competitors faced a series of puzzles that required both logical thinking and physical manipulation. Professor Clark represented the humans and finished second, beaten only by a jellyfish-like being whose tentacles could work on multiple parts of the puzzle simultaneously. "The humans show concerning levels of adaptability," Allison overheard one Vexari official say to another. "Their physical capabilities are impressive, but their minds make them truly dangerous." The final challenge of the day was combat. Each species would face off against a Vexari champion in what Zarkesh called a controlled encounter. Maya stepped forward again. Her opponent was a female Vexari named Krelvun, slightly larger than Zarkesh and covered in battle scars. "Our gravity is higher than yours," Krelvun said as they circled each other in the fighting ring. "Our reflexes are faster. You cannot win, human." Maya didn't respond. She simply watched, waiting. When Krelvun attacked, Maya used the Vexari's momentum against her, sending her flying across the ring. The crowd gasped. The fight was brutal, but quick. Maya moved with a fluid grace that surprised even her teammates. She avoided Krelvun's powerful blows and landed precise strikes of her own. In less than 5 minutes, the Vexari champion lay on her back, Maya's foot on her throat. The Bais arena went silent. No one, especially not the Vexari, had expected a human to defeat one of their champions in direct combat. That night, as the human team gathered in Admiral Porter's room to discuss the day's events, Professor Clark shared something disturbing. "I've been monitoring their communications channels," he said. "Some of the Vexari are calling for immediate action against Earth. They're saying we're too dangerous to allow us to develop further. We need to get out of here and warn Earth." Admiral Porter said, his face grim. "There's more," Alan added quietly. "I've been studying their historical databases. There are references to an ancient encounter between Vexari ancestors and a world that sounds a lot like prehistoric Earth. They don't give details, but whatever happened, it left a deep cultural scar. I think that's why they fear us so much. We've met before long ago and it didn't end well for them." Allison looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth, still under quarantine, unaware of the danger building. "We need a plan," she said. "Not just to escape, but to change how they see us. We can't fight the entire galaxy, but maybe we can make them respect us enough to leave us alone." Maya, still bruised from her fight, smiled grimly. "If they want to see what humans are really capable of, I say we show them." The human team's escape from the Vexari station was not elegant, but it worked. They had stolen a small transport ship with the help of Dr. Kelnar, who had secretly contacted Alan during the night. She believed war with humans would destroy both their species. The traditionalists will kill you before you leave the station if they learn what happened in the combat ring. She had warned. You must go now. Now, 3 weeks later, Lieutenant Commander Allison Gray stood before the United Nations Security Council. The room was tense as she finished explaining what they had learned. The Vexari are divided on how to deal with us, she said. The progressive faction wants cautious integration. The traditionalists see us as an existential threat that must be eliminated. Based on the communications Professor Clark intercepted, the traditionalists are gaining power. How much time do we have? Asked the Secretary General, her face grave. Admiral Porter stepped forward. Weeks, maybe months. They're gathering a battle fleet. Our quarantine might soon become an extermination. The room erupted in panicked discussion. Earth had been building up its space defenses over the past year, but they were nowhere near ready to face an advanced alien armada. We need allies, Allison said firmly, cutting through the noise. The Vexari aren't the only advanced species. Some of the others at the summit seemed less afraid of us, more curious. You want to reach out to other aliens? The U.S. president looked skeptical. How? We're under quarantine. We have a Vexari ship, Allison reminded him, and Dr. West has the coordinates for several non-Vexari worlds. 2 days later, Allison found herself back in space. This time, she was leading the mission with Dr. West, Professor Clark, and a small crew aboard the stolen Vexari vessel, which they had named the Horizon 2 in honor of the ship that had first made contact with the aliens. Their first destination was the homeworld of the Kaldar, a species they had briefly met at the summit. The Kaldar were silicon-based life forms from a high-gravity world. They looked like moving crystal formations and communicated through light patterns and vibrations. Welcome, humans, the Kaldar representative pulsed as they landed. Your visit is unexpected, but not unwelcome. Inside a vast crystal chamber, Allison explained Earth's situation. The Kaldar listened without interruption, their crystalline bodies occasionally shifting to create new patterns of light. The Vexari have dominated this sector for too long, the Kaldar leader finally responded, its body glowing deep blue. Their fear of other predator species has held back galactic progress. We have no ships of war to offer, but we can provide shield technology that even Vexari weapons cannot easily penetrate. It was a start. From the Kaldar world, they traveled to meet the Eridani, an ancient species of energy beings who existed as swirling clouds of golden particles. The Eridani had been watching the Vexari human situation with great interest. Young species are often the most adaptable, an Eridani elder told them, its voice seeming to come from everywhere at once. The Vexari fear change. They have been the apex predators for so long they cannot imagine being challenged. We don't want to challenge them, Allison insisted. We just want to exist freely. The Eridani pulsed in what might have been laughter. To the Vexari, your very existence is a challenge. But we will help you. Not with weapons, but with knowledge. The Eridani shared star charts showing hidden routes through Vexari space and information about Vexari battle tactics. They also revealed something surprising. Many younger Vexari were secretly fascinated by humans and opposed their leader's aggressive stance. As they prepared to leave, the Eridani elder approached Allison privately. There is something you should know about your world, it said. Earth was not always isolated. Long ago, many species visited your planet. Some left peacefully, others did not. Dr. West found references to an ancient encounter between Vexari and Earth, Allison said. Yes, the Eridani confirmed. The Vexari attempted to colonize Earth approximately 3 million years ago. They encountered your planet's megafauna, and more importantly, your evolutionary ancestors. The Vexari were not prepared for Earth's harsh conditions or its aggressive predators. They retreated, but the experience entered their cultural memory as a nightmare. Meanwhile, back on Earth, Dr. Alan West worked with a team of geneticists to understand the connection between humans and Vexari. Using samples he had secretly collected during his time on the Vexari station, they made a startling discovery. There, are genetic markers that suggest interaction between proto-humans and Vexari, he explained to Admiral Porter via secure communication. Not just interaction, competition. We evolved on different worlds, but somehow millions of years ago we shared hunting grounds. And there's evidence the Vexari modified their own genetics afterward, possibly to help them better compete with our ancestors. Are you saying humans hunted Vexari? Porter asked, incredulous. Not modern humans, Alan clarified, but our evolutionary cousins, perhaps early hominids. The evidence suggests they were effective enough that the Vexari never forgot. Their fear of us might be literally encoded in their DNA. Across the solar system, Earth prepared for possible conflict. The moon was fortified with defensive installations. Mars became a military outpost. The asteroid belt was lined with early warning systems. Every nation contributed resources and personnel to the united defense effort. But Allison knew it wouldn't be enough. The Vexari fleet would outnumber and outgun them. Their only hope was to somehow convince the Vexari that attacking Earth would be too costly, even for them. As the Horizon 2 approached the edge of the solar system, returning home after weeks of diplomatic missions, they received an urgent message from Earth. Vexari scouts had been detected entering the outer solar system. The main fleet wasn't far behind. We're out of time, Professor Clark said, his face pale as he studied the data. According to these readings, they've brought enough firepower to sterilize half a dozen planets. Allison stared at the tactical display, watching the red dots of Vexari ships slowly moving toward her homeworld. Then something clicked in her mind. A memory from her conversation with Zarkesh during their first meeting. They think we're monsters, she said slowly. They're terrified of us, even though they're the ones with the advanced technology. What are you thinking? Dr. West asked, recognizing the look in her eyes. I'm thinking we need to give them something new to be afraid of, she replied. Not our weapons or our technology, but the thing they truly fear, our unpredictability, our ability to adapt. She turned to the communications officer. Get me Admiral Porter. I have a plan that just might save Earth. As she outlined her idea, the others listened with growing amazement. It was audacious, dangerous, and completely unexpected, just like humanity itself. Instead of bringing the fight to Earth, she explained, we bring it to them, not with weapons, but with psychology. You want to scare the galaxy's apex predators? Professor Clark asked. Allison nodded, a determined smile on her face. They already fear us. Let's show them they're right to. The Vexari battle fleet moved through space in perfect formation. 120 warships strong, it was the largest military force the Vexari had assembled in centuries. Supreme Hunter Zarkesh stood on the bridge of his command ship, staring at the holographic display showing their target, Earth. Status report, he ordered. We are 6 hours from Earth's outer defense perimeter, his second-in-command replied. No sign of significant resistance. Their planetary defense systems are primitive compared to ours. Zarkesh nodded. The decision to eliminate the human threat had not been easy, but after the events at the summit, the traditionalist faction had won the internal power struggle. The humans had proven themselves too unpredictable, too dangerous to be allowed to develop further. Supreme Hunter, the sensor officer called out, her scales paling slightly. We're detecting nothing. Explain, Zarkesh demanded. Earth's defense fleet is gone. Their orbital stations show no power signatures. It's as if they've been abandoned. Zarkesh felt the scales on the back of his neck rise. This made no sense. Human behavior patterns suggested they would fight fiercely to defend their homeworld. Where had they gone? Proceed with caution, he ordered. This may be a trap. As the fleet approached Earth's moon, they maintained combat readiness, weapons, charged and shields at maximum. But they encountered no resistance. Scans of the lunar bases showed empty facilities. Earth itself appeared normal. Cities lit up across its night side, but there was no communication, no military response. Perhaps they fled when they detected our approach, an officer suggested. Zarkesh wasn't convinced. Humans don't flee, they fight. He remembered Lieutenant Commander Gray's eyes, the determination in them. Keep scanning for anomalies. Without warning, alarms blared across the command ship. Small objects had appeared throughout the fleet. Formation, seemingly from nowhere. Analysis, Zarkesh demanded. They appear to be human vessels, the sensor officer reported, her voice tight with fear. Very small, 1 or 2 person craft. They're everywhere, sir. Dozens of them. Our sensors didn't detect their approach. On the main screen, a message appeared, broadcasting to every ship in the fleet. We are already among you. Panic spread quickly. Reports flooded in from across the fleet. Environmental systems failing on 3 ships. Communication networks compromised on 5 others. Weapons systems locking up. And most disturbing of all, reports of humans spotted inside secured areas. Of multiple vessels. How is this possible? Zarkesh's second-in-command whispered. Our shields should prevent any boarding. Before Zarkesh could respond, the bridge door slid open. Lieutenant Commander Allison Gray walked in, flanked by Admiral Porter and Sergeant Rodriguez. They wore no spacesuits or breathing apparatus, and carried no visible weapons. Hello, Supreme Hunter, Allison said calmly, as if greeting an old friend. We thought we'd save you the trouble of coming all the way to Earth. The bridge crew reached for their weapons, but Zarkesh held up his hand to stop them. How did you get aboard my ship? He asked, fighting to keep his voice steady. Allison smiled. You've been studying us for centuries, but you still don't understand. Humans. We're adaptable. We find ways in. Right now there are humans on 27 of your ships. Small teams just like us. Not enough to take over your fleet, but enough to make a point. Which is? Zarkesh asked. Admiral Porter stepped forward. That if you choose to fight us, it won't be the quick, clean victory you expect. It will be long, bloody, and fought on. Terms you don't understand. Humans specialize in impossible situations. Rodriguez moved closer to Zarkesh, causing the bridge crew to tense. Your ancestors learned this lesson once before, she said. On Earth, millions of years ago, they came to our world thinking they were the apex predators. They left knowing otherwise. Zarkesh's scales darkened with anger. So you've come to threaten us? No, Allison said. We've come to offer an alternative. She produced a small device and placed it on the command console. It projected a hologram showing genetic sequences. This is the evidence Dr. West found, she explained. Proof that your ancestors and ours once shared a world. You call Earth a death world, and you're right. It forged both our species into survivors. We're not so different, Zarkesh. The Supreme Hunter studied the hologram, his expression unreadable. What is this alternative you offer? A new treaty, Allison said. Earth remains classified as a death world if you wish, but humans gain rights to limited expansion and full participation in galactic affairs. In exchange, we share what we know about survival on harsh worlds. Your people have dominated space through technology. We've mastered adaptation. Together, we could be formidable allies instead of enemies. And if I refuse? Zarkesh asked. Allison's voice remained calm, but her eyes hardened. Then you face a protracted conflict with a species evolutionarily optimized to hunt Vexari. We may not have your technology yet, but we have something you lost long ago. The mindset of the underdog. We don't know how to quit. The bridge fell silent. Zarkesh stared at the humans, these soft-skinned creatures who had somehow infiltrated the most secure vessel in his fleet, who had beaten his champion in combat, who spoke of war without fear. 3 days later, the Vexari fleet withdrew from Earth's solar system. The news spread quickly across Earth. There would be no war. The traditionalist faction had lost power, with moderates seizing control from those who had pushed for conflict. 1 month later, Lieutenant Commander Gray and Admiral Porter attended a treaty-signing ceremony on a neutral space station. Earth remained classified as a death world, but the quarantine was lifted. Humans would be allowed to establish colonies beyond their solar system under certain conditions and participate in galactic affairs. After the ceremony, Zarkesh approached them privately. There is something I must know, he said. How did you actually board our ships? Our shields are impenetrable, Allison smiled. We didn't. Most of your fleet never saw actual humans. We used projections, computer infiltrations, and the power of suggestion. You were so afraid of what humans might do that your crews started seeing humans everywhere. Zarkesh's eyes widened. You bluffed your way out of extinction. We pushed your fear button, Porter said. Just as you've been afraid of us since your ancestors first visited Earth. Zarkesh was silent for a moment. You know what truly terrifies us about humans? He finally said. Not your physical abilities, but your cooperation. Predators should compete, turn on each other when resources are scarce. You protect your weak instead of culling them. You build societies instead of simply taking what you want. You are predators who reject predator nature. That makes us unpredictable, Allison said. And truly dangerous, Zarkesh agreed. But perhaps also worthy of respect. As the human delegation prepared to return to Earth, Dr. Alan West looked out at the stars from the station's observation deck. Humans would always be viewed with caution by most galactic species, feared for the evolutionary crucible that had forged them on their death world. But perhaps that fear could be transformed into something better. We come from a death world, he said to Allison as they watched Earth appear as a bright blue dot in the distance. But we don't have to bring death with us to the stars. Allison nodded. What was it Zarkesh called us? Predators who reject predator nature. I think I like that. Behind them, human and Vexari diplomats continued their discussions, beginning the long process of turning ancient enemies into cautious allies. It wouldn't be easy, but then again, humans specialized in the impossible.